Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode. This one being for Haral's mom, Hertha. So, in the beginning, I was quite aware that I wanted her to feel kind of like a solid person. I wanted to give her sort of broad hips and proud shoulders and stuff like that. And quite quickly, I realized that I wanted her to feel very, very hardy and very. It's hard to say. I wanted to feel motherly, but not in a sort of Mother Weasley sort of way. I had this idea of her like loving terrible jokes and stuff, so I gave it like a weird smile, and then didn't really feel like that worked. I really wanted her to feel sort of cheery and in control and kind of merry, but in her own way. Anyway, so I kept kind of trying this stuff out, and this was me sort of trying to scour my own brain for ideas and not sort of going and finding it in references. And this probably has a little bit to do with like I'd already started writing her as a character, and so I didn't want that to be based on anything other than the thing that I had in my head, and I think maybe that's, if not regrettable, then something that ran me into more headaches than probably necessary. But either way, it ended up quite nice, and I'm quite happy with the end result. So I'm taking a load of time on this one. I think this was the one I did right after Greta, and so I really wanted to take the time to make each element sort of work separately. I wanted the line art to work, I wanted the colors to work, I wanted everything to be nice and clean because I felt like the previous one had been so messy. And at some point you'll see that falling to pieces again. There's a lot of shared criticism between this one and the greater one too. I did work them a little bit in parallel. So I started this one I think in reaction to finding that I had run into this issue where I had drawn the heavier line art into the same layer as the underlying line art on the greater one. So I was real frustrated with that one. I needed a break, so I started on this one. And it's funny because I can already see a bunch of the elements that later are gonna come back and haunt me, that I wish I had just solved now at this point in the process. But there's no point in like thinking that way. But I am noting them to myself now, so that the next set of characters that I work on, I don't run into those same problems. And a lot of it has to do with those same issues that I come over a lot. It's a lot about the things that you can get away with in a drawing that you can't get away with in a painting, like the wrapping of her hair, for example. That is going to come off real strange in the painting process, though for the drawing it kind of just worked, I thought. And same with her face, it's existing somewhere in between painting and drawing. Like there are now suggestion lines in the drawing that are sort of suggesting three-dimensional shapes, but they're not actually working that way. So I'm having to sort of go back and try again and again and again. And I get something that kind of works up to a point, but it's that uncanny valley between painting and drawing that I sometimes get real stuck in. And in this instance, I had this idea of her in this ceremonial outfit that she'll have later in the story. So I wanted to sort of give that a quick spin. I might come back and redo that, or just do another take. We'll see. So here I'm using some of the little pointers that I'd made for myself earlier when I worked on the fur of Sigurd and some of the other boys, and doing these like smears of darker colors inside into the direction and color set of the base fur color works really nicely to create these this illusion of like tufts of fur. The color palette was there to sort of play off of Harold's yellow elements, and though they share those, and she also shares some elements with Rengert, she isn't from the same family as Orlauf, and so there's going to be part of the story too, and it is part of sort of one of the plot things, but essentially there are, you know, some family elements going on. So this is one of those times when kicking it over from drawing to painting is real difficult, because I hadn't really drawn her thinking three-dimensionally, especially her face. That's where I got stuck real quick. And so, yeah, you'll see me go back and back over that face a lot of times. And little by little, I'm getting better at sort of finding lighting situations and solutions to those that are less sort of... I mean, you can ask any photographer, you know, like there are ways of lighting any face that makes them look ugly. And unfortunately, I have a penchant for finding those when I'm painting. So I'm getting better at like not just like randomly throwing the light on, but like trying to use it for a decided purpose. It's one of those things that I often tell students to do with most things, but lighting is a relatively recent fascination of mine, so it comes little by little. It's a strange place to be in artistically too, when you when you see something is wrong, but it's hard to see exactly what it is, and so you keep like coming up with ideas of what you can do, and nothing really seems to pull it out. And for the most part, when it comes to problems that have to do with elements where I'm uncertain, I've gotten pretty good at sort of stopping myself and going back and doing studies and sort of figuring things out. And I think I must admit that with some of these, like, pride probably came in the way of me doing a very good job. Which is not to say that I don't like the ending result, but as with some of the other stuff you've seen, it comes via a long road, let's say. So at this point, I'm trying to use a soft light layer, sort of sculpt out the face a little bit, but already the already existing multiply layer isn't really working well enough in order to sort of sculpt the shape of the face. It's almost there, it's pretty close, but I can see there's a couple of places where it's not coming through, and it's really having a bad effect on the overall read. And I chalk that up to over emphasis on details way too early on in the process. So try and be good at holding back at that stuff and focusing more on the overall read of the thing that you're trying to do. Details can always come in the end. It's a lesson that, you know, at this point in after having done this stuff this often and this many times, I probably should be better at it, but I will call special circumstances since it is my own little hobby project. But still, we're here to talk about what we can learn. So you can see, like, I keep trying out things with the face, running into kind of the same issue as we have with Greta, which is part of the reason why, or it's an effect of working these two parallelly, is that I keep sort of almost arriving at the right conclusion with either of them, but then I allow myself to switch over to the other one, and I kind of just go at it the same way. And what originally comes off as a good idea, for example, like the compression of the cheek as she's smiling, looks pretty good, up until the point where I push it too far and the shape just gets too unrelated to the actual shape of the face, and it becomes weird and looks like it slid on its face down into Uncanny Valley. I'll go away and I'll poke a little bit, and also this is one of those where I had, you know, half an hour, 20 minutes to sort of poke around with it, and then I had to put it away and go and do work or go to bed or whatever. And that's not ideal either. So I've found that if I'm going to work on these, I'll usually make sure that I have at least an hour and that I can sort of put everything else on pause and go and work on this properly. Because just jumping in on them from time to time isn't helpful. And sometimes you end up just doing more more harm than good. So I'm afraid this is turning into be a pretty sort of unexciting video for a little while. Because it is, I mean, it's at least 5-6 attempts at doing the same thing and not having the time to do it properly. But oh yeah, as the background shifted color, now I know about where I am in the process. So we're about to come to a point where I'm starting to get somewhere. As a result of this one and the grade up piece, though, I did manage to sort of get to a better understanding of layer use and some clever ideas of like how to integrate the layers and stuff. So that's cool. I learned some things there. But yeah, here you go. It's a heartbreak, but I kind of told myself that it's not working. Got to go back to the beginning. Got to do it again. All right, it's not a problem, and it's not gonna be very long until you see me doing a lot of the same mistakes again. Because again, it's coming back and doing not thinking too much, kind of diving in and feeling like it's going the right direction, and boom. So but with each of those steps, I'm having like just enough time to go back and think, to like learn a little bit and realize a little bit, and then as it looks, carrying on a little too far and struggling with ending up with a result that I'm like happy enough with to sort of lean on that and move forward. And so it kind of took to the end of the Hertha piece for me to figure out what it was that was missing and go and then apply that from the Hertha piece to this. So that's one of the positive things about working on pieces in tandem, is that once you get like a good solution for one of them, those can be easily and quickly applied to the rest, and that's quite handy. And it's funny now with the final pieces. The more I look at it, the happier I get with it. I'm actually very pleased with how it ended up, and I think it really works well with the Haaral piece as well. So that I'm really happy with. This is actually a stage of the character that you're seeing right now that I'm actually very happy with, and that I quite liked, and it's something that I'm gonna be I'm gonna be using for two of the other characters coming up. I'm talking about like that. There's something very charming about these glittering eyes and the red nose, and it speaks to a character a little younger than she's supposed to be. So that too is something that I ended up like not liking terribly in that character, because it didn't really fit her. It made her feel too young for Orlov's wife. And I know some of you are going to think, well, Evan, this is kind of historical fiction-y, isn't it? But not that much. Not enough. So she has to be aged up a little as it comes along. But I'm working with the soft light again within the bounds of what I did with the multiply layer, and I quite like working that way. It's nice, as much as you use the multiply to establish a general shadow, and then you can sort of push the terminus of the shadow with a soft light layer. And often if you set that to a sort of semi-saturated dark color, you'll get this lovely sort of burnt pigment result, which can look really nice. So here I'm starting to pull in the side light that is with all the other characters as well. The idea is to sort of put them all together in one sitting at some point, so you can have like a big uniform group picture. That'd be cool. And it's one of those things that I've learned to love now, is to paint fur. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like painting chainmail and other sort of repetitive textures, stuff that I really like doing it. It's a really good time. You can just like sit back, relax, and do your repetitive texture, do your molding and folding of the form. That stuff is pretty ace, pretty fun. But again, it's becoming painfully clear in rewatching these that there are shapes and elements that need to be given more consideration during the build-up process using the different layers, because there's a little too often that I end up going into sort of render mode and essentially finding that I haven't added enough of elements because I've been too focused on one element of the painting. So I think a general rule moving forward from this will be to try and not allow myself to delve into details this early in the process, and sort of hold off and try and establish everything and kind of practice what I preach a little more, because I think it's very important, the sort of gradual build-up and the establishment of individual elements into a painting, and so seeing myself sort of forget it is it's a reminder. It's a good reminder to make sure I don't forget this, essentially. So yeah, this is about the time where I'm starting to get a little more confidence in the use of the lasso tool back, and so really starting to enjoy putting that stuff in. Quite happy with how the face is about this point in the painting process, and it's not going to change a lot structurally from here to the end, but there's like a couple of things that I think gives her a little more of the mood and the personality that I want, and also fits her better in better with the other pieces a little more. So at this amount of zoom, and this is one of those things that I'm realizing with these sketches too, is that I'm literally zooming in way too much, way too often, and it's taking up a lot of time just trying to render things out to a point that isn't actually necessary, or isn't actually adding anything other than stress. So rule number X is render zoomed out. I think that's a pretty good idea. And you can see like the minute detail I'm putting. I'm starting to just like nab into the face there, and just I keep pushing too many things at too many times, and not really for any reason other than more. And it's a reason to keep things zoomed out, see what's actually necessary to do. Because in the end product, it would probably save me a lot of time to not do so much of that. But again, this is what we're doing here. We're learning. And it's funny because I have them side by side now, the video and the end product, and knowing where it ends up, it really helps when watching this painting video. And about this point in the painting process, I'm starting to sort of step back and forth between the older version and what I have now. I'm starting ever so slowly to fall back into that uncanny valley from earlier, and I think about now, I was very ready to just delete this whole file and start all over again, because god damn it, I didn't want to I didn't want to concede defeat twice. And I know it sounds real like whingy to sit and sort of say, oh, this almost humble braggy. Say, oh, it was so bad, and now it's fine. But that's part of the reason why I'm showing you guys this video, is to show you that like this isn't easy, and it could be a lot easier if if I didn't insist on being kind of silly with some of these applications. But, you know, you paint yourself into a corner and you keep trying. At some point you just have to snap your fingers and realize that you've you've painted away something that you really liked, and so you gotta try and take it back again. And that's okay, you know, it's how we learn. It's how minimalism is established and worked. And it's also how we figure out what we don't want in a painting. So, you know, in the long run, it pays off. But in the long run, it's super frustrating. So, yeah, there you go. Big step back. Screw this, it's not working. Let's take back to what works, and let's try it again. And I think that, in general, is a good rule of thumb, too. It's like a checkpoint in a video game, you know, a place where it works, and then you can go back and try from there again, see if you don't fuck it up the second time or the third time, and so on. So something I'm quite interested in exploring through the Patreon and with the viewers and the audience is sort of the background for all these clans and families, and what the history of this people is, and how all these clans came to relate to one another, and where they all come from, and who they're fighting, and you know how that whole setting works. I have kind of figured it out for myself, but I'm really excited to like show it off for you guys. And there's a bunch of stuff that's kind of embedded in these designs that kind of play up to those things, but might be way too stupid meta. But it gives me some pleasure, so that's kind of that's all I care about, really. But it's a lot of fun. It makes the character design sort of more enjoyable for myself as well, to be able to sort of look at it and read, you know, little shape language elements that I like. I mean, otherwise there wouldn't be much point to this whole project if I didn't do the things that I enjoy the most. But it can be intimidating, it can be real spooky. So I'm glad I've gotten a lot of nice feedback on a bunch of these pieces. Because it seems there are other people who are sort of interested in not just the process, but the stories behind these guys. So I'm real excited to show them off. So we're starting to come sort of towards a safe harbor here. I'm starting to use the smudge brush, as you can see. Starting to pull all the shapes together, making sure that the different values are sort of working together and everything feels nice and cohesive. Yeah, and we're back on that face. Uh-oh. So it's hard to see now, but zoomed in, there's a lot of roughness, and this is one of the reasons why I'm vowing to simplify my drawing style a little bit, especially for faces, and try and simplify things in order to make better paintings. So yeah, that's gonna come, but we have another 4 minutes now. No, 2 minutes of me noodling and doodling on that face until I'm like, okay, leave it alone now. Don't touch it anymore. God, no. So, it's really fascinating too to see the small things that pull something out. That really like gives you a certain element of like a feeling or sensation of completeness. And yeah, it's real cathartic going through like a whole process like this, coming out the other side and like feel like you actually completed a thing. That does feel good, I must say. So pushing and pushing and pushing and just smudging out that fur, trying to make it all feel pretty soft, pretty nice, pretty comforting. If you squint your eyes at the face, you can see how those primary light values and the backlight values are starting to fight a little. There's too many highlights, kind of. So that's gonna be one of the last sort of coup de grace, is to cut the highlights in the foreground and let that like backlight, side light, and brilliate a little more. So coming up towards that, little by little, things are getting cut back in the face, kind of calming down those flesh tones, making them feel like nice and like human. Trying to make that hair feel like it's sitting on top of a human skull. And I think that in the end it more or less worked out. So yeah, pretty happy with the ending, pretty happy with how it turned out. I hope you guys like her, and we are on to the next one. Thanks for watching.